Some people believe the soul leaves immediately after death. Others believe it lingers. This is a true story that happened to me in 2023. And even now, I don't know how to explain what I saw that morning. At the time, I was in 7th grade. I lived in an ordinary apartment building. Nothing special, nothing creepy. But there was one person everyone in the building knew. An elderly woman named Tamara Konstantinovna. She lived alone on the 2nd floor. I lived on the 5th. As long as I can remember, she was always there. Every single day when my friends and I went outside, we would see her standing by the stairwell window, just watching. She was kind, quiet, almost invisible. No one ever visited her. No children, no family. She barely spoke to the neighbors. Later I learned why. Her legs were very sick. Walking was painful, almost impossible. She couldn't go outside. She couldn't live a normal life. The only thing she could still do was walk down a few steps and stand by that window. That window was her world. One day she asked me to buy groceries for her. I couldn't say no. After that, it became a routine. I would stop by almost every day. I'd ask if she needed anything. Sometimes I'd clean her apartment a little. And to thank me, she always gave me candy. She smiled a lot, but there was sadness in her eyes. Looking back now, I think she already knew she didn't have much time. Then winter came. One morning, around 8 a.m., I was getting ready for school. Outside, it was still dark. That heavy winter darkness. I stepped into the stairwell. The light was on, only on my floor. Everything below was completely dark. I started going down carefully. When I reached the 3rd floor, I noticed something in the corner of my eye. On the 2nd floor, by the window, someone was standing there. It was her, or at least part of her. I couldn't see her face, only her legs, her old worn slippers, and her cane leaning against the windowsill, the same cane she never walked without. Everything looked exactly the same as always. But something felt wrong. It was too early, too dark. There were no children outside, almost no people at all. Why would she be there? I started walking faster. I wanted to say hello, but when I turned the corner, she was gone. The window was empty. No footsteps, no sound, just darkness. I froze. I knew I hadn't imagined it. I had seen every detail too clearly. I ran out of the building as fast as I could. Only outside did I start breathing normally again. All day at school, I couldn't focus. The image wouldn't leave my head. Her slippers, her cane, that empty space. That evening, I came home. Before I could even say anything, my mom looked at me and said, "The neighbor from the 2nd floor passed away. She had died the night before. A nurse came that morning to give her an injection, but no one answered the door. When they broke it open, they found her on the bathroom floor. She had fallen, hit her head, for an elderly person." That was enough. That's when everything clicked. When I saw her standing by that window, she was already dead. Maybe her soul returned to the only place where she still felt alive. Watching people, watching children, watching life pass by from that window. I don't know what happens after we die, but I do know this. Some places mean so much to us that even death can't pull us away. When I was very young, my family often left me with my great-grandmother's relative, Aunt Martha. She lived right next door in an old wooden house built back in the 1930s. Inside, the house was simple. White walls, a large stove, shutters, and worn wooden floors painted a dull reddish brown. I liked being there, but not only because of Martha. There was one room in that house, unlike any other. It had a separate white door from the kitchen, right next to the stove. The other two rooms were connected, with their entrance on the opposite side of the house. And every time I was brought there, the door to that strange room was always open. Inside, everything was different. The floor was parquet. The walls were covered with wallpaper. A large wardrobe with rounded corners almost reached the ceiling, and the ceiling itself was much higher than in the other rooms. But the strangest thing was the window. Small, placed directly opposite the door and always filled with bright light, no matter the weather, the season, or even the time of day. It seemed as if some unusual spotlight was shining through it. I never dared to go closer. The light was too bright. I was drawn to find its source, but at the same time there was a strange childlike fear, as if an invisible wall kept me away. No one ever went into that room. At least, not when I was there. There were no toys, but I could sit inside for hours, staring at the wardrobe, the light, the high ceiling. I was a quiet, introverted child from the very beginning. What I loved most was when they started looking for me. I would hide behind the wardrobe. Neither Aunt Martha nor her husband Robert ever thought to check that room. They called my name, looked under the beds and doors, and I waited quietly until they went outside. Only then would I leave, as if nothing had happened. It amused me greatly. Before school, my family decided to have me baptized. The ceremony took place in the same house. I remember little of it, only the priest. He arrived wearing jeans and a t-shirt, took his robes out of a bag, and suddenly seemed like a completely different person. Afterward, everyone sat at the table. Relatives, the priest, and me. I quickly grew bored and ran toward my favorite room. I jumped up, ran into the kitchen, and froze. Where the door used to be, there was a solid white wall. No doorway, no frame, just a wall. I started crying, asking where the room had gone. The adults didn't understand. They thought it was a childish tantrum. Then my godmother came over, Martha's daughter. She held me, listened carefully, and said gently, "Sweetheart, there was never a room here. But that very morning, I had been there. I had seen the light, the parquet, the wardrobe. Now neither Aunt Martha nor her husband nor my godmother are alive. The house still stands, but it has been sold along with the land. My mother and I went there to say goodbye. 'This is where you were baptized, remember?' she said. I asked if she remembered my childhood tantrum. Of course. You imagined a magical room. It never existed. And only the priest told us not to argue with you. He promised you would never see it again. The priest was wrong. I saw it again. Recently, after our last visit to the house, but this time only in a dream. What do you think a child could see before baptism? I grew up in a big family. There was me, my middle sister, and my two younger twin sisters, 3 years younger than me. Their names were Ella and Lena. They didn't look alike at all. Ella looked like a child from an old painting. Long curly hair, chubby cheeks with dimples, soft grey-green eyes. Lena was her complete opposite. Dark hair, darker skin, almond-shaped eyes, with incredibly long lashes. This story is about them. When I was 7 years old, our parents bought a house and we moved in just before New Year's. I already thought of myself as grown up, so I mostly spent time with my middle sister and didn't pay much attention to the twins. They didn't need it anyway. Like most twins, they were inseparable. They invented their own games and were always busy together. Most of the time, they played in our shared bedroom. The house itself was strange. It had been built by a local construction crew and the layout barely made sense. The first part had a narrow corridor, a stove, and our parents' bedroom. The second part had a living room and our bedroom, a tiny space where two beds barely fit side by side. All four of us slept there. Almost immediately after we moved in, Ella and Lena started telling us stories. They said that 3 women lived inside the wall that separated the living room from our bedroom. We laughed it off as childish imagination, but we still listened. The twins described the women in detail. One of them was boring and complained all the time. Another was constantly digging inside the wall as if trying to break through. And the third one cried. Not just cried, she wailed. Soon the twins started talking about a new friend, a boy named Alex. They said he was the nephew of those women and a little older than them. According to the twins, Alex also had a younger brother and a twin sister named Iris. All of them played together, right there, in our bedroom. Our parents were confused. How could 4-year-old children come up with something so detailed? Over time, the stories faded. By the time the twins turned 6, they seemed to forget everything. Years later, as adults, I was talking to Lena on the phone and reminded her of those strange stories. This is what she told me. When Ella and I were alone in the bedroom, the women would appear from the wall. We weren't scared. To us, it felt normal. That was just how things were. When Alex appeared, we became friends with him. Whenever we called his name, he came. We loved hiding under the bed and playing with his sister, Iris. But the children warned us. We were allowed to talk about them, but we were never allowed to show them to anyone. It felt completely normal that Iris appeared from the carpet above the bed and disappeared back into it. Sometimes her brother appeared too. This continued until we turned 6. One day, we told a neighbor girl about Alex. She didn't believe us. She laughed at us. So we brought her into the bedroom. Alex stepped out from behind the curtain. She saw him. After that, he never appeared again. Maybe he was offended, or maybe we simply grew too old. They say children can see things that adults no longer can. Back then, none of this felt strange or magical to them. Now I often wonder who they really were. Maybe echoes from another life. Or maybe a hidden world that only children can see, and not all children. As a child, I never believed my sisters. I joked about their stories. But today they are normal, grounded adults. They have families, they have children. Yet both of them share something unusual. They see prophetic dreams, and they have incredibly strong intuition. Maybe that means nothing. Or maybe it means everything. So if your child ever tells you something strange, something that sounds impossible, don't dismiss it too quickly. Because the mysterious is always closer than we think.